So what is a waiting period in a divorce? In Michigan, I'm an attorney. I work here in Michigan, do divorce and family law. So there is a waiting period for a divorce case. So what does that mean? So what this means is a statutory waiting period. So there's a law that says that the court is required to wait a certain period of time before they can finalize your divorce and actually approve that your divorce has been completed, and then you're done, you have a judgment of divorce. So that's what the waiting period. So waiting period starts when you file for divorce. It's not like you have to wait until you file. You would actually file right away. If you need to get divorced, you'd file something right away. There's advantages to filing first, just as a side note, but as a whole different video topic that we do on whether you should file first or not. But you get something filed. Once the divorce case is filed, if you have no minor children, if no kids or the kids are grown, then you only have a 60-day waiting period. That's not going to get in the way. If you have minor children, then there's a 180-day waiting period. So it's a 6-month waiting period. So that's the two different waiting periods in divorce cases, the way Michigan law is on this. So what this means, if you're filing for divorce, once it's filed, if there's no children together or no minor children, they're adults, then you have a 60-day waiting period. So when there's no children, this waiting period is not going to get in the way. Once you get it filed, get the complaint filed, get everything back from the court, serve the other person, they then have 21 or 28 days to respond. So at this point, you're already a month in. By the time they have their time that they're allowed to respond, you're going to be at the 60-day point. That's not going to hold things up. When there are minor children and you're looking at the 180-day waiting period or the 6-month waiting period, that one can get in the way a little bit. Now, the reality is that the court is allowed to waive part of that if there's exceptions. So in other words, if it's 4 or 5 months into this divorce case with children and you have an agreement on everything and you've worked everything out and there's no disputes and everything's all set, and you do a court hearing, you get a court hearing scheduled, the court could waive the rest of that waiting period and get you divorced prior to the end of the 6 months. But there's no waiving the 60-day waiting period. That one's just required. For any divorce case, the minimum is 60 days. So those are the two waiting periods the way Michigan law does these. Now what goes on, especially the 6-month waiting period, which I think is more important because it becomes a much longer thing and can definitely slow things down. If you have an agreement, you're kind of waiting around for what to happen. So what that means, once you file for divorce, you get a divorce case started. It's not like you wait around and then start working on it 5 or 6 months later. That's not the case at all. There's court dates that'll get scheduled. Your divorce case is going to be moving along. With a divorce case with kids, with minor children, there's easily 2 or 3 court appearances minimum, really, in any county. Any county that we deal with, at least in Metro Detroit, divorce family law is all we do, represent only men. The counties we deal with, there's 2 to 3 court appearances minimum. There's kind of a whole process to it, just like there would be a process to a probate estate or any other sort of court case. There's an anatomy to these court cases, right? There's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and what goes on at each thing. So, you get 4 or 5 months into this thing. Hopefully you're mostly done at that point, or you're certainly working on it, narrowing the issues, figuring out what things are in dispute. Are you working on custody, parenting time, child support, property division, spousal support, trying to figure out what to do with debts or what to do with the house or whatever it is. So, you would be working on these divorce cases as they go along is the point. You're not going to wait till the end and then all of a sudden you got to start figuring it out because now the 6 months waiting period has expired. So there's certainly a life to these. You want to make sure if you have an attorney that this thing is moving along and that you know where you are, where you've been, what's coming up, what's next, because you don't want this waiting period to cause everybody to just do nothing for a few months. That's not really how these divorce cases go at all. But that gives you a sense of what you're looking at here on the waiting period. There's 2 different ones in Michigan, 60 days without children and 180 days when you have minor children. Hope that helps. Thanks.